Yeah, the no brains protests are back. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they all of these like kind of like rudderless bobbleheads went out onto the streets of the United States this weekend to protest. Well, they don't even know what they're protesting. Candidly, it's kind of just the current thing. They know they hate Trump, and but they're perfectly content with adopting whatever it is that the Marxist left tells them at any given moment. So if it's wearing masks for COVID, it's wearing masks for COVID. If it's attacking the police, it's attacking the police. If it's deifying George Floyd, it's deifying George Floyd. If it's waving Palestinian flags, it's waving Palestinian flags. These people have no idea what they're out there for. They're just people with deep personal problems that are manifesting in public because they're sheep and they're being taken advantage of by powerful interests who are looking to cause chaos in the United States for the long-term power of the Democrat Party. Do I have that right? All right. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. It was a great show. Great to talk to you today. No, I'm just kidding. It is actually crazy what these people are doing. And again, a lot of these people are just weak and vicious-minded people, and they're acting in a very vicious way in the streets of the United States. And these are high concentrations of these like super left-wing areas. We saw violence in places like Portland and Los Angeles. We also saw violence in Dallas. This is terrorism, what you're witnessing. This is terrorism. These rioters who are breaking everything, attacking ICE, attacking law enforcement. Here, let's look at Portland, for instance. Here's the No Kings rioters turning violent in Portland this weekend. Shoving law enforcement, cops have to clear the area. You notice that it's trash everywhere. You can tell they're not conservative based on the fact that all they do is litter. Agents of chaos, a bunch of AOCs. Throwing stuff at the cops. Is that keffiyehs? They're wearing keffiyehs, because they're current thing idiots. They wear helmets, little bicycle helmets for their pretending to be at war stuff. Gas masks. Yeah. And then they get arrested. Here they are trying to kick a barrier open. Not exactly the most coordinated crew. Carrying Palestinian flags. Again, current thing nonsense. And they're wearing masks. It's funny. These lefties, why do they wear masks? Chat, why do they wear masks? They're trying to conceal their identity. Why do they want to conceal their identity? Because they don't want consequences to befall them. That's why. And it's funny because they wear these masks, yet they demand that ICE take their masks off. Why do they want ICE to take their masks off? Because they want to hurt ICE. They want to dox ICE. They want to destroy their lives. This is an assassination culture that we're witnessing. This is assassination culture. And I saw multiple examples of assassination culture this weekend from the No Brains protests. Yeah, you can see it on display. They wear it on their clothing. They wear it on their apparel. You and I wear things like, here's an American flag. I wear an American flag. They wear stuff like, the Second Amendment is for shooting ICE. They spray paint on the side of walls that they want to kill ICE officers. Check this out. Here's a braying mob in Los Angeles. Cut 2 here. Pounding on another security fence, trying to break through to get to the ICE officers. Watch. They're banging emotionally incontinent children. You see the guy right there with the shirt? I'll get to that in a moment. This footage captured by the great Anthony Cabasa. Look at this. Gas masks. Hoodies. You got spray paint everywhere. Everywhere. Graffiti all over the place. Just... what does that mean? You don't even have to be there to know what those places smell like, what these protests smell like. They're gross. They're gross. It's so sad. But that t-shirt the dude was wearing, let me show you here on my monitor. This is The Second Amendment is for shooting ICE. The guy's got a mask on. He's got a hat on. He's concealing his identity. And this is, as I pointed out on X this weekend, this is assassination culture. This is the same left-wing assassination culture that led to assassination attempts on President Trump. It's the same left-wing assassination culture that led to multiple assassination attempts on ICE officers, including in Texas, where a sniper took up a position on a roof and began opening fire on ICE officers, shooting through an ICE vehicle, killing illegal aliens. It's also the same assassination culture that led to the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And it's the same assassination culture that's led to threats on the life of Elon Musk as well. Last year, Rutgers University, early in the year, did a survey of left-wingers, and they found that nearly 50% of them, approximately 50%, say they could justify the assassination of President Trump, and about as many say they could justify the assassination of Elon Musk. One of them would go on to actually assassinate Charlie Kirk. It's an assassination culture. And it's long past time that we, as a country, treat that assassination culture on the left as a real, very imminent and very present threat to our country, to our republic. There's no both sides to this issue. It's the right that's trying to create stability. It's the right that's trying to reinstill order to our country. It's the right that's encouraging people to go to church and to pray to God above and recognize eternity and understand that we are not God. That's not the left. The left is composed of too many agents of chaos, weak and vicious minds that are prone to violence and disorder. We are not the same. We are not the same at all. And that guy with the "Let's Kill ICE Officers" t-shirt was not the only one to do this. We also had this one. Check out cut 3 here. Here's a rioter spray painting "Kill your local ICE agent" on the side of a building. This is a terrorist publishing terrorist propaganda with a spray paint can. Watch this. A target painted on the wall, 2 targets, and it says "Kill your local ICE agent." People say that's a woman. She pressed her hand against the slate there, the marble. So presumably authorities are going to be able to get prints in order to track her down. They're trying now because U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley, who's been great out of Los Angeles, he said this weekend, this is a federal crime. If anyone knows who this person is, please let us know. The DHS tip line is 866-347-2423. They're in the process of chasing this lunatic down. And there are people who are being arrested for their crimes this weekend, which is good news because, for instance, in Los Angeles, the terrorists were throwing chunks of concrete at the DHS agents. Look at cut 4 here as these rioters are picking up chunks of broken concrete. Somebody brought it to this and smashed it on the ground, and they began picking up the chunks and throwing them at law enforcement. This could kill someone. Watch. Palestinian flags, anarchy logos, pink hair, throwing chunks of concrete. There's the guy with the "Kill ICE Officers" t-shirt throwing chunks. Let's find that guy. Let's plant his face into the ground. Take him into custody. This is like communist revolution stuff, what you're watching. This is Marxism on display. And those guys throwing chunks of concrete. So, there's that too is a federal crime, and they're taking these guys into custody. In fact, in Los Angeles, one of the guys who was involved in smashing concrete and attacking ICE officers was immediately taken into custody. And this was highlighted by Bill Asaley. Take a look, guys. Here is this lunatic's picture. Let me see if I can zoom in on it. Here. There we go. Check this out. Here's they obviously tackled this idiot to the ground. His whole t-shirt's all torn up. Did he wet himself? Ladies and gentlemen. The guy peed his pants. Look at that. After they actually arrested him. Unreal. There he is. So they get this guy into custody. Bill Asaley points out that federal agents have started making arrests of those who assaulted our personnel at the Los Angeles courthouse. To those who are smashing concrete blocks and throwing them at our officers, we have you on video. We will find you and arrest you too. You've been warned. That's true, by the way. They're not screwing around. They are arresting people all over the place. Remember the people who raided that church in Minneapolis? Remember that Christian church, including Don Lemon? All those guys got arrested. Everybody got arrested and charged. Because the Trump administration is very serious about this, and they're cracking down on it. So people taken to the streets, these terrorists, and they're being arrested for it. But it's one thing to arrest the foot soldiers. It's one thing to arrest the guys who are breaking up the concrete and throwing it against the buildings and throwing it at ICE officers. It's another to go after the sources of the funding, which, remember, the Trump administration has been investigating as well. We've gotten updates from time to time on this. And in fact, here's an update for you. This is from the Fox News channel, the great Azra Nomani, who's an amazing journalist. Azra Nomani has a great piece up today. 500 groups with $3 billion in revenues are behind the No Kings protests and communist calls for revolution. A Fox News digital investigation into all of this. And she takes us to St. Paul, Minnesota, Dateline St. Paul. She says there's a network of about 500 groups with an estimated $3 billion in combined revenues is behind all of the coordinated nationwide No Kings protests that just took place this weekend, including communist groups who are using the day to call for revolution. According to a copy of the permit for the flagship march that was in St. Paul, Minnesota, Indivisible, which is a national well-heeled Democrat political advocacy organization funded by, you guessed it, George Soros, is the lead coordinator for the protest. But Fox News Digital has also identified key participation by a network of radical socialist and communist organizations funded by a Chinese, a guy who lives in China. He's a commie who lives in China, an American tech tycoon by the name of Neville Roy Singham. Chat, his name keeps popping up. This guy, Neville Roy Singham, committed to memory. He's one of these lefties who's constantly fomenting chaos in the United States. He's an avowed communist, and he lives in China with the Chi-Coms, clearly with their blessing and protection. Over nearly a decade, Singham has financed a constellation of activist institutions that promote revolutionary socialist politics and frequently collaborate in protest campaigns, including the People's Forum in New York, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the Answer Coalition, and Code Pink, whose co-founder Jody Evans is married to Singham. These groups work very closely with the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. They're all sending members to the protests, and one group said they plan to bring a message of revolution to the protests. They're trying to bring down the Republic. On Friday evening at the corner of North Fremont Avenue and North 37th Avenue in Minneapolis, members of the Twin Cities chapter of the Party for Socialism and Liberation packed a car with stacks of bright red protest signs they had prepared at the, quote, Dream Shop is the name of the place, for Saturday's demonstrations. They're part of the Singham Network and co-sponsors of the St. Paul protest. The posters read, "No Kings, No War," with Party for Socialism and Liberation printed at the bottom. Activists stacked the signs upside down with their wooden picket handles attached as they loaded them into the vehicle, preparing to distribute them at the next day's main protest at the state capitol in St. Paul. There's a picture of one of these idiots carrying the signs. And so she says, look, this is all across the country this has been happening. Preparations have been underway for this by socialist groups, communist groups, Marxist groups, all from the Singham Network that have openly discussed using the demonstrations to spread what they describe as revolutionary organizing. Okay, let me ask a basic question. If you're organizing a revolution, what are you engaged in? You're organizing a revolution against the duly elected president of the United States, against the constitutional order of our country. Not against a tyrant. They're play acting like they're going against a tyrant. They're pretending Donald Trump is a king. They don't even believe it. They're so full of crap. They're just fomenting revolution. They're trying to create chaos to create the space for Democrats to gain power. That's all this is. Every one of these people who are out in the streets with their weird purple hair and throwing chunks of concrete and wearing their kill ICE agents T-shirts. They're all useful idiots for a Democrat Party revolution. That's what this is. This is treasonous behavior. It's subversion, sedition, traitorous behavior on the part of these terrorists. Are many of them low IQ people that are just out on the streets, again, with immense personal problems? Yeah, for sure. Definitely. But there are cunning forces that are involved in trying to deploy them. And it reminds me of, back in the 2020 election. Remember the 2020 election? The craziness around all of it? Remember how the left organized all of their foot soldiers to cause all that chaos during the 2020 election? And they were prepared on election night to deploy more of their foot soldiers during the 2020 election. And that takes us back to that, what was that timepiece, the plot to save the 2020 election. Let me pull it up if I can find it for you real fast. The secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. You guys remember this piece? Here's what it looked like at the time. The secret history of the shadow campaign to save the 2020 election. And it was written by a woman called Molly Ball. And in it, she describes in detail, this is on February 4th of 2021, she described in detail how the left had all sorts of mobs ready to go on election night. They said that she even starts the piece that way. She said the nation was braced for chaos right after the November 3rd election. Liberal groups had vowed to take to the streets, planning hundreds of protests across the country. Right-wing militias, she claims, were girding for battle. Right-wing militias, what are you talking about? In a poll before Election Day, 75% of Americans voiced concerns about violence. Instead, an eerie quiet descended. The piece goes on to describe how the organizing forces of the left, to include the AFL-CIO, had called off their foot soldiers, told them on election night, don't take to the streets because their other election rigging operations had worked and they didn't need to cause violence or chaos. Well, if there's that much central control, there are clearly people that we can arrest and take down. Clearly. So that continues to be a massive issue, and that continues to be, I know, a source of great frustration in the Trump administration as they try and take down these networks. But again, it just reminds me so much of the 2020 election and the way that the left uses this kind of chaos and violence in order to create political power for itself. All right, more in a moment. I want to get into some of the last pieces of this, including the fact that these Democrats are admitting that Donald Trump's not a king. He's not a king. If he was a king, things would be very different right now. Donald Trump would not have to be constantly arm twisting with the United States Congress and the United States Supreme Court and hoping that things go his way. A king doesn't have to deal with all that crap. A president does. And the president keeps playing by the rules. It's the left that doesn't. More ahead on this edition of Vince. All right. So is President Trump a king? No, absolutely not. If he was a king, that all of this nonsense could be done in a second. I mean, he would just arrest everybody. Like that's what a king would do. A king would crack down. President Trump doesn't mind people using their free speech. He's an enthusiastic supporter of it. Use your free speech. You should be on my side. That's what President Trump thinks, but you don't have to agree with me. People are out there not agreeing with him. And they feel pretty comfortable doing it. It's funny, you ask some of these like weak and vicious-minded lefties, you're like, how many of these things have you gone to? I've gone to 15 No Kings protests. 15. Wow. Free speech doing pretty well, actually. Don't you think at this point that Donald Trump's not a king based on your experience of going to 15 of these crazy things? They don't really have those moments where they have that realization. In fact, here's crazy Mazie Hirono with an own goal this weekend. She posted this to X. It's one of my favorite posts of the weekend. Donald Trump is not, never will be, and has never been a king. Hashtag no kings. I still think President Trump should post this to Truth Social. I think it'd be really funny if he posted that. And just said, thank you, crazy Mazie. You're so right. Mazie Hirono says, he's not a king. He's not a king. Thank you, Maisie. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Appreciate you. She's nuts. And also, I believe she's a number 1 seed in the Dumbest Members of Congress tournament, which is going on right now on producer Jim's X account. Have you guys participated in the Dumbest Member of Congress tournament yet? Chat. It's going pretty well. I think we're in the round of 32 right now, or that might be over. We're on our way. It's going really well. There's a lot of intense competition here. I think Hank Johnson is underappreciated in the seating. I think he should be much higher up, actually, because he is the dumbest of all time. The guy thought Guam would capsize if too many people stood on one side of it. So in my book, Hank Johnson is the DOAT, the D-O-A-T, the dumbest of all time. But, there's a lot of really stiff competition. Crazy Maisie Hirono is way up there. So make sure to vote in producer Jim's Dumbest Members of Congress tournament going on right now on his X account. You can just click your way through the votes, and we'll see who wins. It's going to be big. It's the 3rd year we've done this. But there's Crazy Maisie. She's got the own goal this weekend. And then there was Tampon Tim, which this is one of my favorite clips, too, from the weekend. Tampon Tim posted no kings this weekend. He just wrote no kings. This is a low-effort post by Tampon Tim Walls. Really did not put any effort into this at all. No kings. And then the Republican Party responded. They wrote no queens, and they posted a photo of Tampon Tim sashaying across the stage. You see this? God, that's really good. That's no queens. Really, really funny. These guys totally deserve this. Please dunk on them on a routine basis. Yes, there he is. He's like a gay Elmer Fudd, Tampon Tim. He's something else. All right, there we go. That's your Tampon Tim update. I know you were looking forward to that. Appreciate everybody's patience for that one. Let's dive into what's going on right now with this DHS funding debacle. Remember on Friday, I was telling you that the United States Senate had passed a partial funding bill for everything but administrative employees over at ICE and Border Patrol. And it's totally unsatisfactory that we're not funding all of DHS right now. All these guys deserve to be paid. Get them paid. Get America back up and running. We have a country to protect, clearly. But the Senate was able to get kind of a snappy, unanimous consent bill pushed through. And the question was on Friday, is the House going to actually seriously take it up? Well, the answer to that should now be crystal clear. The answer is no. The House is not taking it up. In fact, the House said, screw that. That's an awful arrangement, an awful compromise. We're going to go for broke here. We're going to go for the full funding package. So on Friday, the United States House of Representatives passed a 60-day extension for DHS funding, flat DHS funding extension. There's no compromise with the Democrats, no, screwing over ICE agents or exposing their identities to the weak and vicious mob, nothing like that. It's just 60 days more funding, so there's 60 days more opportunity to negotiate here. Now, I think they should be funded for the rest of the fiscal year. 60 days to me is not enough, but 60 days is what they put through. Now, the big challenge we have is the United States Senate not in session. They ain't here in Washington, D.C. So what's going to happen here? What's going to happen? Well, the Senate may be out of Washington, but they're not in a real recess. You realize, guys, that what they're doing right now is a fake recess, right? Where they gavel in every couple of days and just keep the fake recess going. The reason they do that is to prevent the president of the United States from exercising his power of the recess appointment, which at some point President Trump should just uncork on the Senate for this, because it's like totally disrespectful of him and his presidency that they're not letting him exercise the full breadth of his power here, because they're just obstructionist. Even the Republicans run the House and the Senate, and they're not going into a real full recess. They're not. And so the Senate is going to gavel in today for a moment. They're just going to gavel in for a moment because they're maintaining what they call a pro forma session of Congress. And in so doing, a tremendous opportunity is available to get DHS funded. And I don't want you to tell anybody about this. It's a big secret, because if it works today, then we'll have caught the left off guard. They don't know anything about this. Don't tell them about this super secret plan. But here's what Chad Pergram says from Fox. Chad's great on the Capitol. He's like, one of the absolute best in terms of describing the procedure in the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate. Here's what he says about today, what you have to watch for today. He said, the DHS funding drama is heading back to the Senate today, this morning, after the House approved the 2-month stopgap spending plan for all of DHS late Friday night. The Senate does meet Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. So, by the way, if you're listening to this on the podcast, this may already have occurred. I'll just accept that for what it is. We're live here at 8 o'clock, Rumble. If you ever want to join us live, rumble.com/Vince. But the Senate is set to meet 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. It's supposed to be a pro forma session. The body simply gavels in and gavels out with a skeleton crew on hand. But that might not be what happens Monday. As soon as the Senate gets through the prayer and the pledge, it's likely a Republican senator seeks recognition from the chair. If that happens, we anticipate the Republican senator will ask for unanimous consent, meaning all 100 senators would agree to take up the DHS bill that was passed by the House on Friday, that it be read a third time and then passed. The chair will then ask if there's an objection. If any senator at all objects, the House bill's dead. But if there is no objection, the House and the Senate are aligned and the bill is passed. The bill is passed. That ends the DHS shutdown. But again, if there's an objection, everything remains frozen. So remember, the United States Senate on early Friday morning, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, they passed this unanimous consent arrangement in order to get partial funding through. But now that all these senators are out of Washington and they don't want to come back, and they're doing a pro forma session today, there is a scenario where the Senate today could offer this by unanimous consent. And if there is no stupid Democrat in the chamber to object to it, we might be able to pass it. Now, that's a big if. And there's a lot of variables here, including whether or not Republicans have the testicular fortitude to even attempt it. But Chad Pergram says, stay on guard for this today. And if he says it, I believe it. I definitely believe it. I respect that guy's reporting skills on this subject. So keep an eye on that. That could be a very fascinating component to all of this. Now, we need the funding. We absolutely need the funding. And in fact, it's so obvious at this point that Democrats are obstructing it that you've got members of the legacy press confronting them about it. I've got video of that and so much more, including updates on the war in Iran. It's all ahead on this edition of Vince. So, where were we? DHS funding. All right, so the Democrats are being confronted now by the legacy media. You know why? It's because, candidly, the legacy press is all in on Democratic Party power. The only exceptions is when their own lives are inconvenienced. So if the legacy media are having trouble boarding flights, if they're waiting for hours on end just to get on an airplane, that's when they start to think, hey, how do we stop this? And then they start examining, like, well, I think Democrats are standing in the way. I need to be able to get on my flight. I have first class. I have pre-check. I have clear. Why am I waiting in line? ABC's Jonathan Karl this weekend confronting Democrat Senator, the conjugal visit guy, Chris Van Hollen. Here's that this weekend. Cut 5. Watch this.
I guess what's confusing here is you have fought and blocked the funding for the Department of Homeland Security because you object, as you just outlined, to what ICE has been doing. And you wanted to force changes. And yet, the only thing that has been assured throughout all of this is that ICE already has the money. Because, as you said, $75 billion passed in the budget bill last year. So you're holding up the entirety of the Department of Homeland Security because you object to ICE and you want changes to ICE. But through it all, ICE continues to have the money it needs.
John, we're not holding up all of the money for all the Department of Homeland Security. That's just a false statement. We have said repeatedly, repeatedly, we should fund TSA, we should fund FEMA, we should fund the Coast Guard. We are not prepared to give ICE another $10 billion on top of the monies they already have and are using in many of these lawless operations. We're not going to give them another $10 billion unless they make fundamental reforms,
over that $10 billion, you're holding up everything else
for the killing of American citizens.
And fighting over that additional $10 billion, you are holding up the rest of Department of Homeland Security.
We're not holding it up.
I mean, you're saying...
No, John, we're not holding it up. We have now voted 10 times.
Right, but you're holding up unless it doesn't include money for ICE. That's just a fact.
That's just a fact. That's just a fact. That's not the usual treatment for Democrats on these Sunday shows. But there it is. Jonathan Karl's saying, my flights have been very inconvenienced. I'm trying to resolve them. And it turns out I looked really closely. It's your fault. It's your fault. And he's right. Chris Van Hollen, what is he doing? He doesn't want ICE to be funded. Why is it? What does he got against ICE? Oh, he's mad that they deported his lover, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Kilmar, I want to have margaritas with you. And so Chris Van Hollen, who is very sad about Kilmar, who he calls a Maryland man, he's worked harder for the MS-13 gangster than he has any American citizen in Maryland. He's mad that ICE deported him. So because he's throwing a tantrum about that subject, he's not allowing DHS to have any funding whatsoever. He's like, oh, I said they could have some funding. No, you're holding all of this hostage until the agency that deported your lover gets defunded. We're not playing that. We're not playing that. So the American people want to see all of this funded, and the Democrats are standing in the way right now. There's Chris Van Hollen, again, being confronted by a member of the legacy media. John Fetterman, you know what? As long as Fetterman says sensible things, I'll play sensible clips of John Fetterman being sensible. Here he is saying it's crazy that this shutdown is continuing. America is imperiled by the fact that DHS doesn't have funding right now. Take a look at John Fetterman making sense.
Getting harder and harder to justify this, extending the shutdown. I mean, I even brought up, something even more accessible to, an average American, like the soccer fans. There's millions, and now preparations are significantly behind. And now we're 77 days out, and this is still shut down. And you have millions of people from abroad coming, and millions of Americans joining these two. And it's like, if you've seen the kinds of chaos at the airports, I can't even imagine now. You have millions coming here for World Cup, and we are sitting on our hands.
Yeah. So Fetterman's like, look, we've got the World Cup coming up. That's that thing where they kick a checkered ball around. That's coming up here in the United States of America. We're welcoming people from all around the planet for the checkered ball tournament. And in order to do that, we need the country to be safe. And we need these other countries to have assurances that it is safe. And it's the Democrats who are standing in the way because they're trying to prevent foreigners who came here illegally from being deported. That's actually psychotic. And yes, it is. It's totally psychotic. It's so psychotic, John Fetterman can detect it. Damn, they love illegals. They love illegal aliens. They love protecting them. Tom Homan was on the Sunday shows this weekend, and they keep asking him, like, are you going to remove ICE officers from the airports? When are you going to do that? When are you going to do that? He's like, when we don't need them anymore. When we don't need them anymore. Right now, ICE officers are the Marco Rubio of government agencies. They do it all. They do it all. They help deport illegals. They save children who are in distress, and they're processing people through TSA. They're doing everything. And to be crystal clear, if you encounter this in your life, if you see any of this, I've seen this all over social media, where people are saying things like, oh, ICE isn't really doing anything. They're just standing around at the airport. That's a lie. That's a stone cold lie. First of all, the TSA administrator said she absolutely is very grateful for the work that ICE has been doing to help her and her agency out. She's very, very grateful for that. She said it's been a massive help. The other thing is they're actually taking IDs. They're processing people through TSA. They're doing the work of TSA agents so that the few TSA agents who are left are working things like the X-ray machine. They're down to like the final step as you're going through security. The rest is being handled by ICE in many airports. True. So the left, even as ICE is helping, continues to lie about what they're up to. Oh, they're just on their phones. They're doing nothing. They're standing around. You're a liar is what you are. You're a liar, and you're trying to foment distrust and chaos. But they work hard to protect the legal. So Holman says that the ICE agents are going to stay for as long as necessary. And the lies about ICE continue. Over on CNN this weekend, One of the hosts was nervous that the Trump administration is going to send ICE officers to polling places in November. Have you noticed that this particular storyline has not died on the left? They're like, is the Trump administration going to rule out enforcing the law? No, the Trump administration is not going to rule out enforcing the law. What are you talking about? Why are you even obsessed with this issue? Are you telling on yourself here? Watch, here's cut 7. CNN very nervous about what might happen in November with illegals.
Let me ask you about a separate topic. Several administration officials have discussed and have not ruled out the idea of sending ICE agents to polling locations during the midterm elections this November. Has President Trump asked ICE to start making any sort of plans to go to polling sites during the midterms?
I've had no discussions about that with President Trump or Secretary Markwayne Mullin. Has not come up in any conversation.
It has not come up. In other words, no, nobody's talked about like actively sending them, and nobody's talked about preventing them from going. We're literally obsessed with this thing right now, which is how do we resolve all of the chaos in America that's been caused by the Democrats? How do we resolve all of that, including all of the tens of millions of illegals who are here who need to be deported, in all of the chaos in American transportation, and all of the chaos in America's city streets as George Soros and that Chinese communist billionaire dude, Singham, Roy Singham, are causing all this chaos in America. We've got a lot to deal with right now. What are you talking about? And why do you keep bringing this up? Why does the left keep bringing up polling places and begging the Trump administration not to send ICE officers there? It just makes me want to send ICE officers there. Now, I want the president to send ICE officers to the polling places because the left keeps telling on itself that they're going to have illegals meddling in the next election. You people are unbelievable. Unbelievable. And they're still on it. This is a big issue for them. They think it's really important to keep obsessing over that. All right, fine. If you're obsessed with it, we'll obsess over it. We'll send ICE officers to the polls. See how you like it. By the way, I would love it. There's law enforcement there protecting the integrity of my election. I'm shaking their hand. I'm thanking them. God bless America. Unreal. Unreal. All right. And then finally, is this, guys, do I have this Charles Barkley thing? Let me see. Oh, yeah, let me pull this up. I pulled this morning. That's why we don't have it in the cut sheet. So first of all, March Madness continues, and it's like amazing what's happening. Some amazing games. But last night on CBS, for some reason, Charles Barkley took part of the basketball telecast and started talking about immigrants being treated unfairly in America. I don't even know what the hell he's talking about here. Again, it's Charles Barkley, so I mean, I guess that stands to reason that sometimes you have no idea what the hell he's talking about. But can just watch this with me for a moment. Listen to this.
I want to be very careful with my words right now.
Okay.
Because this is a really touchy subject for me.
Why?
I love that kid and his family. But the way some of these other immigrants are getting treated in our country right now is a travesty and a disgrace.
What?
I think there's a difference between amazing immigrants and criminal immigrants. And I think what's going on in our country, what we're doing to some of these amazing immigrants is really unfortunate and it's really sad.
Let me just ask a question before I play the rest of this and then dunk on him. It's the only time I can dunk on an NBA player. Are there any immigrants in the chat? Are there any legal immigrants to our country in our chat right now? Naturalized American citizens? People who chose to come to this country because they'd like to be here and they did it the right way? Anybody? Do you feel put upon by the Trump administration? Do you feel attacked by the Trump? Is something unfair being done to you? Look at this. Yeah, we have lots of immigrants in the chat. Lots of people who've chosen to come to the United States of America, did it the legal way. Yes, I am. Yes, yes, yes. Do you feel attacked? There's an Aussie right there. I'm an Aussie American. I love Trump. Yes, so all these people are saying no. Yeah, I'm an immigrant. I don't feel put upon. I don't feel attacked. What is Charles Barkley talking about? Now, notice he's not making a distinction. Maybe he doesn't know the distinction. Didn't CNN give this guy a show at one point with Gayle King? Didn't they called it King Charles? Didn't they have a show together? Did that get canceled? Whatever happened to that? King. Anyway, here's Charles Barkley. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's like, immigrants are being treated poorly. Illegal aliens are being deported. Violent criminals are being removed. You are talking nonsense right now, Barkley.
And that's a great immigrant story. We have a lot of great immigrant stories out there their stories need to be told, but some of the stuff that's happening to immigrants in our country right now is really unfortunate and it's really unfair. But immigrants built this country.
No.
And we should admire them and respect them.
No. I mean, that's just so brain dead. That's a lie of a bumper sticker. Immigrants built this country. You know, there were, of course, phases in American history where we did welcome immigrant labor to assist in the construction of this country, especially at the turn of the last century, where you bring in a lot of various Irish and Italian labor. We needed labor at the time, so we started bringing people in order to build the railroads. But the truth is, the country, as it was founded and built, was built by Americans. It was built by Americans. The people who built this country didn't immigrate here. They were descendants of people who settled here, who conquered here, who built something. The country was built by Americans. It wasn't built by immigrants. It doesn't even make any sense. How do you build a country with immigrants if the country doesn't exist? If a country doesn't exist, how do you immigrate to it? I don't think Charles has spent a lot of time thinking about this, but it might be worth it. He's running his mouth about it on national television in the middle of a telecast that's being watched by millions of people. And everyone's sitting around kind of gravely nodding as he says this nonsense. Doesn't even make any sense. Anyway, that caught my attention this morning, and I was like, we should probably address this. Speaking of immigrants and people who are ungrateful about being here, J.D. Vance, he's not an immigrant who's ungrateful to be here, by the way. He is grateful to be here. He was talking about Ilhan Omar this past week with our friend Benny Johnston. He sat down and did an interview with Benny Johnson. And while he was doing the interview, they brought up Ilhan Omar. Benny did. And J.D. Vance said, all this talk about her committing immigration fraud, she definitely committed immigration fraud. Take a look at this. Cut 8. Here's the Vice President of the United States.
Omar and Tim Walz, and obviously Ilhan Omar. The president and the White House have been out saying that she married her brother, that there is immigration fraud going on here. These are deportable denaturalization offenses. Can you give us an update on that?
Yeah, so we actually think that Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America. And I talked to Stephen Miller about this actually recently. We're trying to look at what the remedies are. That's the thing that we're trying to figure out is what are the legal remedies now that we know that she's committed immigration fraud? How do you go after her? How do you investigate her? How do you actually do the thing? How do you build the case necessary to get some justice for the American people? There's a related issue, Benny, which is she has been at the center of a lot of the worst fraudsters in the Somalian community. So do I know that Ilhan Omar was aware that the Quality Leering Center was defrauding the American people? I'm not certain of it, but we at least need to investigate it, because if people can commit wrongdoing without even the fear that they're going to be found out, that's a fundamental problem. So I'm worried about the immigration fraud. I'm also worried about what did Ilhan Omar know about what was happening in the Somali community, and why was nobody looking into it until, frankly, Donald Trump came along.
I love it. So in case you were wondering if you were the only person who felt like Ilhan Omar committed immigration fraud, or if it was just President Trump, it's also J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance is the head of the fraud force, and they have prosecutorial capabilities. And he said outright, he goes, we are examining every aspect of the law right now. He's been doing it with Stephen Miller as well, looking at what are the ways in which we can make sure to hold Ilhan Omar accountable. And God willing, they figure it out, that they can do it. Whether it's, the limitations of statute of limitations or how you can denaturalize her. If you basically have to prove that she committed fraud as she was becoming an American citizen herself. Remember, the core of that story fundamentally is the immigration fraud she committed was in order to assist her brother's immigration fraud. That's the core of that story, because they brought him over from London and she marries him, pretends like they're a married couple, and they are in government documents officially, in order to make him a citizen. That's the immigration fraud we're talking about. And the legal remedies for that, the Trump administration is explicitly exploring them, which is good. It's long past due for accountability for that lady. It's insane that such an ungrateful person is a member of Congress right now. She should not be, especially because she's a criminal. That's another good explanation for that. She's a Somali fraudster, and we've got far too many of those in the country right now. Okay. Let's see. Just with the limited time we have left, I do think it probably is very important that we talk about the state of the war in Iran. What's the latest on that? And here we go. There's a lot of headlines this weekend going absolutely apoplectic about the chances of a ground invasion of Iran. Have you seen these headlines, Chad? Everybody's talking about a ground invasion. Like the troops are going to deploy, or we're going to be sending in tens of thousands of Marines and soldiers into Iran. Everyone tap the freaking brakes. Tap the brakes. Keep cool, my babies. And listen to what we know rather than the hysterical speculation that's taking place in the media right now. Here's what we know. Marco Rubio just met with the G7 this past week, foreign ministers, with basically his counterparts at all of these allied countries across the planet. And when he met with them, he said that this war is going to continue in Iran for the next 2 to 4 weeks. That was at the end of last week. So 2 to 4 more weeks, up to a month more of this. Now, for those of you following along at home, this is an extension on the president's original timetable for what he was hoping the war would be. His original timetable was 4 to 6 weeks. We are on the verge now of getting past that 6-week limit, but this is the nature of war. It is true. Timetables will change. You can never be certain of how these things will end. But clearly, the attitude inside of the Trump administration is we need to accomplish the mission, which is denuclearizing Iran, and then we need to, as much as we can, get out of there. Get out of there. We're not trying to engage in a big nation-building exercise. We're not trying to destroy and then subsequently rebuild the infrastructure. We're not going in there to build democracy or anything like that. We're going in there to disable a threat and encourage the Iranian people to do whatever's necessary to reclaim their own future. But this is not about a big nation-building entanglement. We've done enough of those. And so the Trump administration, whether it's President Trump or Vice President Vance or Secretary Marco Rubio, all of them are saying the same thing. We're looking to wrap this thing up soon. So he says 2 to 4 more weeks. Weeks, not months. In fact, here is J.D. Vance talking just a few days ago. This is talking to the press and what he had to say on this subject is right after he came out of this G7 meeting. Take a look. Here's Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Watch.
We are on or ahead of schedule in that operation and expect to conclude it at the appropriate time here in a matter of weeks, not months. And the progress is going very well. Obviously, we have some work to do. We have to finish the job, and we are finishing that job. I did describe to our allies, however, that immediately after this thing ends and we're done with our objectives, one of the immediate challenges we're going to face is an Iran that may decide that they want to set up a tolling system in the Straits of Hormuz. Not only is this illegal, it's unacceptable, it's dangerous to the world, and it's important that the world have a plan to confront it. The United States is prepared to be a part of that plan. We don't have to lead that plan, but we're happy to be a part of it. But these countries have a lot at stake. Not just the G7 countries, but countries in Asia and all over the world have a lot at stake and should contribute greatly to that effort to ensure that neither the Straits of Hormuz or, frankly, any international waterways should ever be something that's controlled or tolled by a nation state or by a terroristic government like the one that exists in Iran today and that radical clerical.
It's annoying to me that Marco Rubio has to twist any arms from these foreign countries to do the most obvious thing, which is assist the United States. We're constantly busting our ass for these countries. We're constantly giving so much treasure to support them, emptying our stockpiles, coming to their aid, coming to their rescue. And the least we ask you do is stand up for your own energy security. You think the uptick in gas prices we've seen in the United States is a big deal? Look at what's happening in Europe. It's chaotic. And the reason is because they're highly dependent in Europe, unlike us, because we have American energy. They are highly dependent on the flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz. So it's not a challenge. I mean, this is in your interest. Why do we have to beg you to do this? Just do it. So Marco Rubio going there and telling everybody, get on board. We need you on board here. We got to secure the Strait of Hormuz. And you need to be a part of it. And he says we're just now, as I pointed out in the timeline there, we're looking at a couple of weeks. That's what we're looking at. Weeks, not months. Now, what about the use of ground troops, boots on the ground? I've been telling you to keep your eyes on the nuclear material mission. When President Trump declares what the mission is, which he keeps saying, is to denuclearize Iran, how do you denuclearize a country? There's a couple of options. You blow up the nuclear material, or at least you blow up the locations where the nuclear threat exists. The material will still be there. You get them to turn it over in a deal where they actually hand it to you, or you go in and you grab it. The go in and grab it option remains on the table. Now, would that be a risky mission? Yes. Would it be perilous? Absolutely. But allegedly, reportedly, the president is still weighing a military option to extract Iran's uranium. That's according to the Wall Street Journal today. They say that this is the mission that the president is considering right now. President Trump is weighing a military operation to extract nearly 1,000 pounds of uranium from Iran, according to U.S. officials. A complex and risky mission that would likely put American forces inside the country for days or longer. Trump hasn't made the decision about whether to give the order, adding he's considering the danger to U.S. troops. But he remains generally open to the idea, according to the officials, because it could help accomplish his central goal of preventing Iran from ever making a nuclear weapon. Again, what is the president's mission? Preventing Iran from ever making a nuclear weapon. As clear as anything can possibly be. How do you do that? You disarm them. You get rid of the nuclear material. Do we have troops who can do this? Yes. We have troops, we have units who are specially trained in this mission. They've trained for a very long time for it. A very long time for this exact mission. The president is contemplating using them for that. In fact, the president said this weekend, he was on Air Force One, and he said that they need to give up their nuclear weapons. They need to give up their nuclear dust, he said. Here's the president explaining this to reporters.
Thank you very much for doing what you did. They are decimated right now. They're going to give up nuclear weapons. They're going to give us the nuclear dust. They're going to do everything that we want to do. And you know what? They're going to go on and maybe have a great country again. But if they don't do that, they're not going to have a country. They're not even going to have a country.
They're not going to have a country. If they don't do that, they're not going to have a country. Now, as we are on this program this morning, President Trump did just post to Truth Social a short while ago. And here's what he said. I want to share this post with you from Truth Social. The United States of America is in serious discussion with a new and more reasonable regime to end our military operations in Iran. Great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island, and possibly all desalinization plants, which we have purposely not yet touched. This will be in retribution for our many soldiers and others that Iran has butchered and killed over the old regime's 47-year reign of terror. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So the president once again threatening to destroy Iranian infrastructure if they don't come to a deal. And so we're in a high-stakes moment here. But on the table, as always, with the president of the United States, every option necessary in order to resolve this conflict and get it over with.